Hitler, probably the most famous dictator in all of history, became Chancellor of Germany in 1933. He became the dictator in 1934. He blamed the Jews for Germany's World War I defeat, and Hitler used it to help him rise to power. He used propaganda about Jews to explain Germany's hard economic times, and gained followers by doing so. He brainwashed the German people to hate the Jews the way he did. They hated anyone who wasn't of the Aryan race, and the Jews were an easy target. So were the gypsies, gays, and anyone who was not Aryan. The Holocaust was the genocide of millions of people, including Jews, gypsies, gays, and anyone not of the Aryan race that Hitler idolized. Hitler sent anyone who was not of the Aryan race to what was called concentration camps, where they sent people either to death or to labor. Not everyone was like these Hitler believers, though. Some people did not agree with what Hitler and his Nazi Party followers were doing. In fact, there were many people who tried to help save the lives of Jews and gypsies in many different ways. People had Jews in their house, knowing this was even punishable by death. Others helped get Jews out of the country to a safe country like the United States. Other people got in really deep with the Nazi Party to shield their plans. The Nazis needed supplies for the war. They needed food, water, and weapons, obviously. That is where one of the most famous people that saved Jews did his work. His name was Oskar Schindler.
In 1908, a man by the name of Oskar Schindler was born. He grew to become a successful German industrialist who joined the Nazi Party in 1939. In the same year, he and his wife Emily opened an enamel and ammunition factory that eventually employed almost 2,000 people. Almost 1,000 of his employees were Jews from the Krakow ghetto. During World War II, Schindler saved all of his Jewish employees from deportation to Auschwitz, which was Nazi Germany's largest killing center. He was able to save them by bargaining their lives with promises of war supplies for the Third Reich.
This is Suzanne Spock. She lived in Paris with her husband, who was a filmmaker, and their 2 children. She found her nirvana in raising her family and generally enjoyed being a housewife and a mother. Her father was a famous Belgian banker, and she was the sister-in-law of the Belgian foreign minister, so she was accustomed to a high standard of living. However, once she learned of the German plan to exterminate all Jews or anyone who was not of the Aryan race, she lost her peace of mind. To counteract the wrongdoing, she joined the national movement against racism in 1942. Specifically, she wanted to help the children since she had 2 of her own. At first, the members doubted her abilities to help, but quickly found out that they misjudged her. Spock took the biggest risk by sheltering children in her own home until they were able to be transported to villages with people willing to shelter them. She provided them with ration cards and clothes. In October 1943, Spock was arrested by the Gestapo and taken to a prison. But before she was incarcerated, she managed to give a list of the Jewish children and their addresses to an underground comrade, thus saving the children. On August 12, 1944, within a week of the liberation of Paris, Spock was murdered by the Germans.
It was the winter of 1940 in a mountainous region of Vichy, France, where a pastor named André Trocmé lived among a group of French Protestants. Late one night, a Jewish woman fled Germany and came to the door of the pastor. She sought shelter and hoped he would let her in. Due to the mayor's refusal to falsify documentation, the pastor's wife had to inform the woman that they could not let her stay. As more refugees came to the area, the pastor and Magda began to identify with more of the families in the area who were willing to take in and help refugees. Although the pastor had to go into hiding for a brief period, he continued to oversee the work of the community. By the end of the war, the pastor helped the community save approximately 5,000 people. Roughly 3,500 of them were Jewish refugees.
Thousands of people were saved during the Holocaust thanks to the humane nature of a handful of people such as Suzanne Spank, Oskar Schindler, and Andrei Trocmé. It was an extremely risky and dangerous thing for the saviors to do. The consequences were grave and families were torn apart. So many refugees sought safety and were willing to ask for help, knowing that there was a chance someone would sell them out as a refugee. Many other consequences included jail, arson, and torture. It was not uncommon to murder someone who went against the regime or helped save the prisoners. These rescuers are famous for their humanitarian efforts to save the Jews from persecution.